welcome to Star Wars Spelt Out. I'm your host, Josh Chapman, and today we are down on the Mornington Peninsula. We're in Steel Wars country down here, and we've just been having a lovely weekend away playing golf with a bunch of friends, and it feels like my whole life is just going out doing stuff with friends, because we did the last podcast, we were away for a friend's birthday. But sitting across from me now is a good friend of mine who I want to get on for a while, who came second today in the golf.
Yes. Yep.
Second. It's Seamus Scorgi. Hey, mate. How you doing?
I'm very well. How are you, Josh?
Good. First time on a podcast?
Yes, indeed. It certainly is. But, looking forward to it.
Now, your name's come up a couple of times on here before, because I know that you're a Star Wars guy.
Okay, because I was a little bit worried.
Yeah,
about
I'm just like, you know who I hate
about on a podcast
is Seamus.
That's
when people are talking about it.
That is where my mind was going.
I had Vinny on. Vinny was on last week, and you know Vinny obviously very well.
I do.
And people who've heard this now know him. And, I was coaxing him all day, like, come on, dude, come on. You want him. He's like, ugh. And then, of course, he had a few drinks and he got on and he wouldn't get off the microphone. But the first thing he said is like...
That is not surprising.
Yeah, the first thing he said was like, you were talking about me on your first episode about how you thought Monkey Magic was boring.
It is.
The story was that we'd gone round to his place because Vinny... For whatever reason.
A lot of stories start with I went round to Vinny's place.
Because he never had any parental guidance.
No, it was an escape. You'd go to Vinny's house and there would be no parents around and you could do whatever you wanted to be doing.
And he had this amazing house that was like, oh, you want a steak? You feel like a steak? You want a steak? I'll cook you a steak.
Yeah, and especially you grow up thinking that MSG is bad and you go to Vinny's house and he's like, do you want added MSG?
Like, here it is.
Okay. Hang on, why is this not on everything? This is amazing.
Well, that's the thing about MSG. This is not related at all Star Wars, but who cares because we're just talking. When I lived in England, it's MSG's fine. So you go to all the Chinese restaurants, and I used to go with, Pat Binding, our mate, yes. My good mate there. And every Friday for a long time, we would go to this place in Leicester Square that was this old Chinese place we called Shitty Wok. And we would go, it was just a very run of the mill. It was always like the catch up. We'd go there and we'd catch up. And you just open the door and it was the smell of MSG would just hit you in the face. And there was just some weird scare campaign in the 90s, wasn't there, about MSG?
And obviously it was something in Australia that MSG was bad for you. So for years and years, the shows would always be saying, buy our food, but no added MSG.
It was like some kind of weird current affair thing, wasn't it? MSG. They were just it has MSG.
That's right. It's going to get you. So whatever you do not eat food with MSG in it. And until I went to Vinny's house, I had no idea what the hell it was. I just knew that you weren't meant to eat it.
It's just hey, can I get a bag of that to take home to put on stuff?
It's just the most amazing thing to be putting on food. So you go around to Vinny's house and you're like, can you please get the MSG out? And you pour it all over whatever you were eating, and it just made it better.
Yeah. So he basically, he was, I don't want to go. I don't know if I want to be on this podcast. And of course, he arced up, and you give him an inch,
and he takes a mile.
He takes a mile, and that's exactly what I knew he would do. So yeah, it was actually quite good because I got into the whole. Now you remember this. I mean, it's weird here to talk about the thing that happened last week, and he's not here to defend himself.
That's a good thing.
That when the prequels came out, he was like, "Oh, I'm just going to wait till all three come out, and then I'm going to watch it."
He did too.
Yeah, and I brought it up to him, and he just goes, "Oh yeah, I just never got around to watching the third one. I haven't even seen it. I don't know what happens."
Mind you, in hindsight, if you didn't get around to watching them until you're waiting for the third one, then you're going to watch them all. After you'd heard the feedback, maybe you wouldn't have watched it.
Yeah, well, that was the thing also. But your sort of Star Wars claim to fame in regards to this, why you came up on the podcast, was basically you're the guy who got me all the expanded universe books when they sort of came out.
I remember spending hours and hours reading all of these books that now have effectively been wiped from the canon.
Yes. Now, I had Kat's brother James on a couple of times, and he's very similar. If you go around to his house, I've made this joke plenty of times before, if you go around to Kat's parents' place, it's like James has been lost at sea. His bedroom is exactly how it was when he moved out of home. So all his toys and shit and all he said he had 150 Star Wars books.
Yep.
And they're all expanded universe stuff, basically. So I remember, we've been friends for a long time, and I just remember you sort of talking about the books, and I'd never really read them before. And we're getting heckled from outside. Those are the guys who want to be on the podcast. There'll probably be some people, coming in. And you were just like, "Oh, have you ever read the books before?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I haven't really." Like, "Oh, yeah, well, start with Heir to the Empire." But you had Truce at Bakura as well. I think I might have even read that first.
everything.
So did you, when that, came out, were you just like, hey, shit, Star Wars books?
Yeah, I think I was, I mean, I assume it wasn't on the internet. I must have, I don't know,
Well, it would have been
reading
pre-internet.
a magazine or a comic or something and saw an ad for, the Grand Admiral Thrawn trilogy and was like, oh my goodness, there are Star Wars books. And because I think growing up, some kid at primary school had told me some silly story that there were all of these Star Wars books and you got all the backstory of what Yoda was like as a young Jedi Knight. So I'd always thought that there were these books. And
he was just writing his own fan fiction, basically.
That's exactly right. Because as I got older, I went looking for these books.
You're like, excuse me, I'm looking for the young Yoda series.
And they're like, you mean the novel of the movie? I'm like, what? There's no other books. So
That's the youngest he is.
So, I finally see that they're bringing out some books after Star Wars, and I'm like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
And I think that I was at Monash University at the time, and they had a library called the John Medley Library, and that was
how he wanted to be honoured to have Star Wars books in his library.
That's exactly right. I mean, the John Medley Library was a library for people that didn't like libraries.
Who was John Medley?
I have no idea.
Right.
But the library, this is back before MP3 players.
I'm going to Google it and see if there is a John Medley.
And so basically, you'd go in there and you'd pick your favourite CD to sit and listen to and read books. And so because universities have wonderful timetables, and I'd have, say, second year genetics, I'd have 2 lectures on in one day, and one would be at 8 a.m. and the next one would be at 4 p.m, and I'd have nothing to do in between. So I'd go to the John Medley Library. I'd, book out a couple of Green Day CDs and sit there listening to Green Day and read Star Wars novels.
It's not a bad way to live.
I spent a long time at university, so I spent a lot of my days listening to Green Day, reading Star Wars novels.
And look, Green Day's still around. Star Wars still around.
Yeah, hey, that's it. It's just unfortunately there's, little people get in the way these days.
I just remember you telling me, because you're a teacher, or now you've kind of elevated from teacher, but you're in education, basically. When Green Day kind of had their second renaissance, American Idiot.
Yes.
And all the kids started getting into Green Day. And you're just like, dude, I was into Green Day in freaking 93. Step aside, son. Because they kind of became popular and kind of went away and then shot up and became even more popular than they even were before that.
Remember one student in particular it was my second year of teaching, she was the biggest Green Day fan at the school, and I think a girl in my homeroom had mentioned Green Day, and I'd said that I liked them back when I was at high school, which was frightening for her, but she'd obviously told this other massive Green Day fan, and she's like, hang on, you have all of their other CDs. You've got
Kaplunk.
Yeah. Was it 21,000 smoothed out slappy hours?
Yeah.
And she's like, can you please bring them in? You cannot buy these things. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. I mean, even in high school, nobody liked Green Day like I did, so nobody else had any interest in their back catalogue. Being able to bring them in as a very old person.
And that's right. Be the cool dude all of a sudden.
That's right. It was very strange.
Would you like my Star Wars novel? She's like, ugh, get away from me. No,
that's right. That's taking it too far.
Yeah, that's right. So I distinctly remember you lending me... I think you actually were just like, technically started Truce at Bakura, because that was the one that takes place after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, pretty much as Return of the Jedi.
And that one's kind of, I think that's the one with dinosaurs or something in it. They're like lizard dinosaurs in there, or it's a bit of a, I read it the one time and just gone,
yeah, I reckon I read it 20 years ago now.
Yeah,
which is scary in itself.
Yeah, it's like, this is a bit of hard work. But then obviously the Thrawn trilogy was really good.
Yeah, and I think I started with the Thrawn trilogy because that came out before Truce at Bakura.
Yeah. And then they just
was a much better way to have done it.
Yeah. They went back and kind of filled in the gaps and stuff, didn't they? I mean, they loved filling gaps.
Quite a few filler stories. The better ones were always the trilogies, the standalone books.
The one that killed it for me, we'll go back, but the one that killed it for me was, which is actually kind of used as a running joke now, is the one where Luke falls in love with the ghost in the spaceship. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, look, and maybe it's just me, but any of the books that really seemed to focus on Luke were not the ones that I was enamoured by, shall we say?
Because he's the hardest character to write for, especially post that because he's so powerful. Like, what do you do with him? So it's always like you got in some wacky situation that they had to get him out of.
If he turns up, then the battle's over.
Yeah, so this is exactly why in the new films he's either missing or he's got issues or he doesn't want it, because it's like as soon as if he gets up and he's just like, all right, I'll go, like the problem's solved, and then it just negates every other character in the thing.
Whereas no matter how powerful he was, I just always see him as that little annoying kid that would say, but I wanted to go into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
And that's how we all remember him the best.
And it's just, go away.
I was talking about this to someone else the other day about this, or maybe I brought it up online. Talking about like original Star Wars, like New Hope, like actually how many days it takes, like real-time days it takes place.
Okay, yeah.
So like from basically opening crawl to finishing thing, and it was basically just, I think we kind of went 3 days is kind of where we landed.
That'd be, for the full first movie.
Yeah, because the only thing that's kind of contentious is like how long they spend
in hyperspace.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, well, how long does that take? Do they sort of sleep over? But it seems like it's over pretty quick. Like nobody's kind of has bed hair, walking around with bed hair or anything.
No, but I guess at the same time, we don't want to watch that either.
No, that's right.
So if it took a week to get to Alderaan,
well, people get
then they start playing a computer game and you start watching that, and then suddenly they arrive, or it took 2 minutes.
Yeah, because it's basically like they get, the stuff happens to the blockade runner. R2 and 3PO go down to the ground. Then they're gone overnight, so that's 1 day. Then Luke pick up the droids. They buy the droids.
Yep.
Then
R2 nicks off at night.
Nicks off at night, so that's another day. So that's 2 days. Then basically Luke meets Ben. That all goes down.
But then I guess it gets night again because they've got to get out at dusk. They've got to get back to Kenobi's place because the Sand People come out at night.
So does he stay another night then? So is Luke missing at night that whole night? No.
Or is it no, that's the same night, isn't it?
No, because before he goes, it's too dangerous to go out after R2 because there's,
And then they go out looking the next day.
Morning, because he leaves early, so he's gone early in the morning. He's gone looking for R2. He's found him. He gets caught by the Tusken Raiders. Ben shows up. They go back to his place.
Yeah, and I think they go back inside because you don't want to be out at dusk because that's when the Sand People are out.
Yeah, but I think they're still out. But then they go and they find the Jawas have been killed. Then Luke goes back to the homestead. Homestead's been burnt down. He goes back. I'm just doing it all real time here. They go to Mos Eisley, so it's still the same day.
Yep.
They meet Han Chewie. They leave Mos Eisley. Then it's the hyperspace is the what's going on.
And then effectively, as soon as they come out of hyperspace, they end up at the Death Star.
Yeah.
And Kenobi then goes to try to turn off the shield generator.
Yeah,
and
but that's all happening in like an hour later.
That's right.
They get Leia out. They leave. Then they get to the Rebel base.
But then how long does it take them to get to the Rebel base?
Well, the Death Star's always like 20 minutes away.
But the Death Star's capable of flying through hyperspace.
Yeah, so you imagine they're not that far behind. So depending on how long it takes...
They put the tracking device on the Falcon.
Yeah, so it all depends on how far it takes to get from Alderaan to Yavin. There's something apparently in an audio...
If I had one of the Star Wars expanded universe novels right now, I can open up and I can have a look at the map, which I always found so fascinating, seeing where all these places were.
Yeah.
You could see how close together Alderaan and Yavin actually are.
And that's the last little bit. So it feels like that, like the 70% of it all happens in the last day.
Yes.
Like in one bit of it basically goes down. That's the last bit. Oh, we've got another audience member here. Are you going to listen? I can get you a microphone, mate. He's got nothing to say. All right, we'll drop his name, but that's okay. That's always the contentious part. But I reckon about a day. Because everyone talks about Empire Strikes Back going, we don't know how long stuff takes when they're basically trying to get to Bespin. That could be like months. And Luke's like training. How long does that take? Is it months?
So if we think, though, about Star Wars, and effectively if the Rebels are the most significant threat to the Empire, how long do you think that they'd want to prepare for their attack on this Rebel base? Is all they're going to do is, all right, the Falcon's gone there, let's chase them and go and attack them.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're considering that if you're attacking your greatest threat, are you just going to go, yep, all out, let's go attack them, let's not think about it, let's not spy on them, let's not work out their plans or how strong their forces are or what their defences are, or do we just say...
There's a whole bunch of...
The Death Star is the greatest weapon in the universe. Who cares how many people
Let's just show it and blow it up.
That's right.
We don't have to do anything else. Yeah, well, that was the arrogance. They're just like, the Empire blowing up's our thing.
Yeah, and I
how we
suppose
roll.
when they're doing the trench run, it's not as though there's any Star Destroyers in the background.
No, because they had the whole thing of like, the defences were made against a whole bunch of ships showing up trying to blow it up. The small fighters can get in.
Yeah, and they're having to launch all of their TIE fighters from the Death Star. They're not launching them all from the surrounding fleet. It's literally just the Death Star.
It was the arrogance. The arrogance did them in, basically. That's what cost them. But so the books, just going back to the books, Heir of the Empire. What's the second one? Last Command's the final one. What's the middle one? I just remember I read those ones, and then I borrowed the Jedi Academy trilogy off you as well. Mm-hmm. So I read all those ones, which were good, not as good. And then I think there were a few of those sort of ones after that weren't that good. There were
some good ones. There were some not so
shonky
good ones.
But then there was the two books that Timothy Zahn brought up later on. That was basically I'm gonna wrap up all the loose ends.
Yeah,
in like 20 years.
This has gone on some interesting directions, some good, some bad. I'm going to try to bring it all back together to create some semblance of sense out of all of these other authors.
Yeah, and then basically kill off all the things that, because I think there was sort of implied that like Lando and Mara Jade like being a couple, and then there's a bit where he's like, oh no, well, he never got a hand on me, I'm just like, whatever. Lando gets what he wants, Yes. He would have ground you down eventually.
That's right.
And that was a weird, because that was the one where there was an actor who was pretending to be Grand Admiral Thrawn, or. Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's so you got an impersonator that's trying to use that to get the Empire back together again, or whether it's Grand Admiral Thrawn coming back from the dead.
Yep. And then they basically just wiped all the books. So what do you remember the last one was that you read?
Well, after those, they started on this enormous arc about the Yutzong Vong.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure I've destroyed the species name. But it was about a 20 or 30 book arc, and
this is too much of a commitment, man.
But by the time I started to think, what the hell is going on? I'm 15, 16 books in, and by that point, you have to keep going.
Yeah.
But the New Republic was getting pummeled. They were losing battle after battle, and people were dying, and it's just...
Didn't Chewbacca got like a moon dropped on his head or something, didn't he? They killed Chewbacca.
It did not go well for the characters that we loved, and you couldn't see it. You couldn't see it going any better. And you're thinking, I've gone and I have spent hours and hours, and I've spent hundreds of dollars on all these books, and I haven't enjoyed them.
Yeah, I'm just grinding.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the end, and there was always this hope that you'd get to the end. And look, unfortunately, as things tend to do, you go through 16, 17, 18 books of complete and utter crap, and then they wrap it up in the last two.
Yeah,
and you're like,
and they go, actually, we managed to flick the switch that killed them off.
Yeah, we worked out how to destroy them, and now we've killed them, and yay!
Yeah, and there was like another big run after that, I think, where Han's son goes to the dark side, and that's kind of like the families kind of fight, and I think, I didn't read those ones.
Because I think that's because, how many spoilers you want, but...
the books are out. You can spoil it. It's okay. I don't think anyone's going to mind.
Anakin Solo dies, and then you've got Jason and Jaina, and Jason was always the one that... You always thought he was the good one. Anakin was the one that might turn to the dark side, and I believe...
When they name him that, it's just like, poor kid's got no hope.
That's right.
It's like naming him Adolf,
But as far as I know, because I think by that point I'd given up, but I believe that Jason then goes to the dark side.
Yeah, I think so. I think Jaina kills him. So I think...
I'll have to take your word for it.
I haven't read it, but I'm just trying
I gave up by then.
Yeah. Once they got far enough away from the core characters that I knew, it just became harder to care.
Yeah, and I guess that by then, the core characters were, 60, 65. They weren't really doing anything.
Yeah.
It really had to be their children.
So while, obviously you've gone, I put all this time and money and effort into this, and then Disney take over and they just wipe it. Obviously, could you objectively go, I can see why they've done this?
Well, Disney are making a lot of money out of it, so I can understand why Disney would want to do it, because now they can effectively bring out a new Star Wars movie every year and make, print their own
So
money.
if they were like, we want to bring out a new movie, but we don't want to be beholden to this timeline.
That's right. We don't want to have the same kids with the same names and the same characters. We want to be able to go with what's working, and if we go with a plot line that nobody likes, we can just kill those characters and go in a different direction.
Yeah. Because it's sort of like the movies now kind of dictate present day in the Star Wars timeline, if you know what I mean. Like if Last Jedi is basically like today, we don't know what happens anything past that point now.
No.
They're always responsible for the thing going, whereas the books just went like 10, 20, 30
the decade
years.
or so that I spent reading those books and getting invested in those characters don't exist anymore. They have no bearing on the movies.
You didn't get on a few angry message boards or anything like that, or
Yeah, no, that's
not really your bag, is
No.
it? It's not real.
No,
I know
I
you
mean,
pretty well. It's not really what.
What am I going to get out of writing on message boards saying, "Oh my goodness, I cannot believe you've changed things"?
Well, it was funny because like James Cat's brother, who'd been on, was a very similar bag, invested a lot of time and money into it, and he was a bit like, "Oh, I was disappointed to see the characters go, but I fully understand why they did it." And
totally.
actually, they've started dropping little bits and bobs in where it fits, especially stuff like a lot of. Have you seen Solo?
I have, yeah.
So I don't know how well he was really into like the young Han Solo books,
and
he
as was I.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. So did you actually go, they've dropped that little name in there?
And I think in my early 20s reading the Han Solo books, I think Bria Theron, who was Han Solo's love interest.
Yeah, he talked about her a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Kira.
in terms of falling in love with a character in a novel, I fell hard.
Wow.
Just I really reading and imagining being Han, and you find this
Young love.
Yeah, that's it. And what was really funny, because where it ends up. You know that he falls in love with Leia.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this girl is way better than Leia. Like, why the hell
What are you doing,
is he
dude?
going to leave this girl for Leia?
She eats it though, doesn't she?
Yeah, of course. But she according to the books, which is now not true.
Yeah.
She was the one that helped get the plans out to destroy the Death Star.
Yeah. So she secretly became Jyn Erso. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw Rogue One, and you sort of watch that, and you can see aspects of what was in the books, but it's a little different.
So what's your Star Wars viewing thing these days? Because you're a dad, you got a bunch of young kids and things, and I have invited you along to the midnight things. You're a bit like, dude, I got 4 kids, I got to work.
Yeah, it's
midnight
not gonna happen.
is a little bit difficult for me.
That's true, and I mean, talking about the books, one of my favourite characters of the early books. His name was Kip Duron.
I remember Kip Duron, yeah.
Yeah,
he was the bloke they found down the mines or whatever,
yes,
wasn't it? Yeah,
exactly. And so I was a big fan of him, and I had his little miniature.
They did a bunch of figures. Quite recently, they did Black Series. They did like a Jaina Solo, and they did like Darth Revan. They've done a few expanded universe figures at one stage. I don't know if they're doing them anymore, but they have snuck in. But I haven't seen a Kip Durran anywhere.
Yeah, I used to have one until I had children. They may have lost things.
Did you have many toys? You had a few collectibles and stuff, didn't you?
I didn't have many Star Wars ones. I had quite a lot of Transformers in particular.
Have you got them still? They're worth quite a lot of money now.
Well, look, again, I had lots of them until I had children. So Transformers that I had for 20, 25 years, they managed to break really quickly.
Dude, Chris Fresh, if you're listening right now, he will be. There's a good friend of the show, Chris Fresh, who's been on, who hosts a pod called Geek Dudes, and he's got a glorious collection of old school toys and stuff. And anytime he hears things that have happened to toys, he gets very upset. He was on, and I was telling him how Marty sold all his Masters of the Universe collection for about $50 in about 1992.
I still have.
He
Masters of the
winces.
Universe.
Have you still got them?
I do, and I've only just recently taken them off my parents' hands and added them to my children's toy collection.
Oh, so you haven't put them away? Oh my God, Chris, if you're
in my
listening,
children's
dude,
toy box.
Chris right now is going, get them away. Put them in a cabinet.
I don't think my kids have found them yet. They have definitely destroyed my Transformers.
Oh my God! Right now, Chris, I'm sorry, mate. He will be crying, right? He'll be very, very upset. But I've got a couple of Kenner, my OG. I found my original Darth Vader from when I was about 6, my little one. And, he's still got a spot. And actually, our friend Chris, our friend Cody, who's sitting here very quietly, his best mate, he contacted me a couple of years ago. And he's going, you like Star Wars, don't you? You like stuff about Star Wars, don't you? I'm like, yeah, a little bit. And he's like, I bought this Darth Vader toy off some bloke for like $50 10 years ago. Apparently it's worth a bit of money. Can you put it up on a site and see if anybody knows anything about it? So I put it on some collector's thing, and it was like original sealed Kenner, variant original Darth Vader in its, I think it was $3 or $4 or something it was worth. So it was, and all these blokes like, where'd you get this from? That's fake. That's fake. That's been faked. And he's like, dude, I don't, So I think I put him in touch with the collector. I think it might have been he put a few on a few groups, and basically it turned out to be legit. And I think he got a decent price. And I think some of the plastic had slightly broken, and it cost him a bit, like opposed to really sealed and things. But they've actually just announced that they're doing a re-release of the original figures, like original packaging and everything. But they've got retro, so people can't pretend they're the same. But they look. So I think I'll probably get, like the Chewy and like one or two that I had in the
hand. So I can see myself spending far too much money on getting my own set.
Well, Matt, who is here tonight, he's my Reject Shop Connect man. So he's a bit of a wheel and deal in the Reject Shop, and a lot of Star Wars stuff ends up there now these days. So it's quite a good place to get figures and things, where I get a lot of figures and stuff. And he was talking about what their long-term plans are. I can't really go into detail because I get his permission, but collectors will be happy to know that I think they're still going to be stocked for a while. But
it's good to
hear. The Kenner stuff is quite. Yeah, something special about our little figures.
Yeah, there is, and mind you, I cannot believe that when the original figures came out, that people had the foresight or the stupidity to purchase the figures and leave them in their packages.
I always feel like it's just a crate of, that's been at the back of a toy store somewhere that someone's forgotten about, and they just, that's the dream, that you go to some country toy store and they go, got any Star Wars? Like, Star Wars? Oh, I think we had a box of Star Wars out the back somewhere, and they blow the dust off. It says, it says $2 a figure. I guess these will be okay. You're like, thank you, suckers.
I cannot imagine people in the late 70s, early 80s buying them. Well,
I would love to get.
Let's not open them.
I sit on, I sometimes just sit on eBay every now and then. Go, I wonder what a sealed Luke or a Return of the Jedi Luke I always wanted in a packet would be, or a Han. It's just like hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
That's it.
But then I've gone, if they do a re-release and it looks pretty much just like it, and it's in a packet and it costs me $25.
That's right. What's the difference?
I'll buy the two that I want, and then I'll save myself the rest of the money. So I'm going over to Celebration in April, and I'll get a couple of exclusive toys and things. But I'm not going like I'm going to buy heaps of stuff. I don't really pay full price for toys and stuff. But it's the 20th anniversary of Phantom Menace this year, if you want to feel old. And they're doing...
Yeah, I do think.
And they're releasing a couple of... Like, they're releasing an Obi-Wan... in the retro packaging and stuff, and I got him for my 21st, so I'll probably buy him. But I'm not going to. I've got to bring my suitcase back. I can't have too much stuff.
I mean, I remember that preview coming out for Phantom Menace, and that preview was
Did we watch
amazing.
I'm just trying to remember, because we
went to a midnight screening.
We went to midnight, but when the trailer came out, we actually had, remember the house in Box Hill that we lived at?
Yes.
That's where we were living, and we had internet, but it was dial-up. It was so crap that you couldn't get, it was just like... It took hours to get anything, It was being used for other reasons and stuff, but not by me. But I remember the Entertainment Weekly or Entertainment Tonight had the trailer. They're like, we were out somewhere. I think I've told this story in here before, but we because it was, you're 20 or 19 or whatever, and you're always doing stuff. And I remember them going Entertainment Tonight's going to be on at 11 p.m.
and showing the new.
And then we're showing the trailer. So I remember setting the video, or maybe even just recording it before I left the house. I'm like, it's an hour and a half away. The tape's 3 hours, so
it's going to get on there somewhere.
And then getting back from the pub or wherever it had been or whatever, it was probably like Goo or Metro or one of those places.
Really? Not Cheers or...
might have been Cheers, might have been one of those places. Yeah, actually probably was. And, I'm fast forwarding and then just watching it over and over again on the thing. But you're at midnight. Was it Forest Hill? Were you at that one? I'm just trying to remember.
I thought maybe we saw them at... Did we see them at Century City? Because I think that, some of the
Forest Hill, we definitely...
you
maybe...
Worked at Village and were able to get us tickets. One.
Yeah, we had, because there's a lot of... there was about 10 of us who went to Forest Hill.
Look, if we were at my house, I could tell you, because I'd be able to go upstairs and get out a box and get out my movie ticket for that midnight screening.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you know what? Next time you're back home, double check it. Well, the thing is, I remember my distinct memory of Phantom Menace revolving to you directly was that you got a bootleg of it quite recent after it came out, because your dad would do a lot of travelling overseas.
He did, yes.
And he would come back with like the old bootleg CD-ROMs or DVD. Was it DVD?
I think initially they were VCDs.
Yeah.
I think was what they were, and then they started becoming DVDs. So I had...
You had everything.
I had DVDs of the original Star Wars trilogy before they were on DVD.
Yeah, well, I remember you telling me the whole plot of Dogma before it had even come out in Australia and stuff. I'm like, what? And you're like, yeah, this happens and this happens. Just come around and watch it. But I remember that you'd gotten a copy of Phantom Menace. And I think you'd specifically said to your dad, I'll get one, I'll get two, and I'll give one to Josh. And I remember watching it on my computer, it was like the big, because I got a computer for my 21st, it was like the big box screen thing, and it was when we were living in that little flat in Canterbury, me and Sean. And it wasn't even really where my bed was, so I had to kind of sit across the way and look over and I remember the quality being all right.
Yeah, it was okay. I remember he brought it
being
back
like video camera
before it came out here.
It was before.
And I'd said to myself, I'm gonna wait until I see it at the cinemas. I don't want to ruin it watching it on a little computer screen.
Yeah, no, I definitely only got it after I'd saw it at the cinema, because I think I saw it 7 or 8 times at the cinema. Something stupid, trying to convince myself that it was fantastic.
Yeah,
just watching it over. It definitely has its moments. I don't sort of poo-poo it, especially now I'm older. Actually, there's a lot of it that I quite enjoy, and then other bits I'm like, it's just Star Wars. Everybody has stuff they don't like about it.
Yep.
But, I do remember you kind of bringing the disc, and that was after I'd already seen it, because we would have been in the Canterbury house, so that would have been 2000.
Okay.
And Phantom Menace was 99, so it would have been probably 6 months after it had come out. And I think it hadn't come out on VHS yet. VHS, because that's what
long time ago.
I know, he was still buying VHSs in 2000. But yeah, you had the Sweet Connect.
Yeah, and I mean, back then, Dad seemed to have to go to this conference or that conference every couple of months, and he'd come back loaded with pretty much every movie under the sun. Mm. And so if there was something that I wanted to see the cinemas,
yeah, because I remember just going dude, do you want to come and see? So you're like,
I saw that months ago.
I don't just spend $10 on that. I've already seen that. You had quite a good setup, because you had that sort of little study room that had the screen and stuff in it, and yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, with pretty much every movie there was.
Yeah,
and so that means, of course, at my house now, my DVD collection is phenomenal for the early 2000s. And other than that...
Stops about there.
Yeah, well, look, say from about 2008 or thereabouts, I've got lots of children's DVDs.
Yeah, it's just tough DVDs now, because you just can't give them away. Like, we go to Campbell Market quite a lot, and it's just people giving away DVDs. And I'll go through, and there's people who've got... Because I got rid of most of my DVDs. I keep my Blu-rays still. Mm-hmm. And occasionally you'll see like a dude our age, and he's like, he's got that, he's got great stuff. I'm going, well, this is just going to be me trying to sell this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, when am I actually seriously ever going to watch it? I've got a few I bought Last Jedi and Solo on 4K, just because I got an Xbox One X and it does 4K, and looks great, but it's not like I go, this is up 10 times better than Blu-ray. It still just looks good. And I'm like, well, I might as well just, because it comes with a Blu-ray anyway when you buy 4K. So I've got that. I might as well just get it. But apart from that, I don't really buy... There was a stage there where I was always buying stuff, especially when I was living with Sean. He's still got a huge DVD collection, but you can't give them away now. It's like CDs.
Buy any for me, but the kids still get them.
Yep.
And I think the kids watch them because we can put parental lock on the television, but that doesn't stop them watching DVDs. So when we think they've watched too much TV, we'll put the parental lock.
So what gets the big run at your place that you reckon they're watching when you're not... What's the one that's on the precipice where you're like, I guess you can watch it?
Well, at the minute, they want to watch the Harry Potter movies. So we've really told them, no, you can't watch the movies until you've read the books.
Yeah, I think Marty did that with his kids too. I think he pulled that on his daughter, and then she just burnt through them, and then they were like, Deathly Hallows time. It's like, oh, we thought you'd be like 12 by the time you got to Deathly Hallows, but...
Yeah, well, Marty's only got 2 children, so that the age range is quite narrow.
So all of... because you've got 4 kids, so
Yes.
does that mean that the youngest has to have read the book by the time...
That's right, otherwise the youngest has to be somewhere else.
And your oldest is, your oldest is 11 or 10, 11. She's like, come on, man.
From 5 to 10, so the older ones can read them, but my youngest has only just started school, so
that's brutal.
She can't read, let alone read the Harry Potter books. So either she's got to be somewhere else, or sorry, you can't watch them because
so
not
Star Wars,
read
any
them.
Star Wars got to run at all, even the younger stuff?
I have tried getting them to watch Star Wars, and I've sat them all down. And
this is Dad's thing.
They tend to have left the room within the first 3 or 4 minutes.
Is that original?
Yes, yeah. I tried starting them with the original, but they weren't having a bar of it. The only one that is interested is my son.
Yeah.
Who, we spoke about Kip Duron earlier.
Yeah. Is he named after Kip Duron?
He's not. His name is Kip.
I never really put 2 and 2 together until just then.
My wife suggested the name, and in my head I was like, there's a Star Wars character called Kip. Yes, we can have a Kip. Not spelt the same way. It's the old English name. So
we
K-I-P, not K-Y-P.
Our new daughter's Sloane, and people go, that's Ferris Bueller's girlfriend. I'm like, it is. That wasn't where we came from, but when people go, oh yeah, it's the same name as Ferris Bueller. It's not a very common name. There's like 3 Sloanes in the world. So there's like a tennis player, there's Ferris Bueller's girlfriend, and there's the girl from, what's it called?
Yeah,
the
E's
Newsroom.
girlfriend.
The Newsroom. Sorry?
No, E from...
Entourage.
Entourage.
I only ever saw the movie, and it was like the worst movie ever. And then
I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, it was terrible. And I hadn't seen the show, so maybe that didn't help. But all right, so Kip, he's coming into that age now. Was he probably 6 or 7?
He's 7 now.
Yeah.
But Kip, I tried to get him to watch the movies, and because he loved Star Wars without having seen any of the movies.
Yep.
Without...
Has he done Rebels or Clone Wars or Resistance?
No, he never watched any of that because he's got 3 sisters, so he doesn't get to choose what's on TV. They're watching Dance Academy, and he's like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to have to watch Dance Academy. But whether it was, from kinder or school, he'd hear all of the plot lines. So, I would have gone and seen Last Jedi, and he'd know exactly what happened. I'm like, you won't watch these with me.
The schoolyard is a...
Yeah, he knew.
So you haven't taken him to anything in the cinema?
Well, so I took him to Solo.
Yeah.
And, so this was the first time, and it was, all right, look, we're going to have a special...
Dad and son,
yeah. We're gonna go out.
This is what I've dreamed of. I'm taking my son to see a Star Wars movie.
And he was just having the greatest day of his life, and I couldn't help. Every time I saw... the Solo, I'm thinking, obviously Australia is the only place that has a soft drink called Solo that has colours that are...
Solo, a thirst crusher Star Wars story.
That's just... The branding looked like
I know, it looked
soft
exactly
drink.
like it, didn't it? Yeah.
As pathetic as I am, I Googled it and looked it up and went, no, we are the only people that have this.
Yeah, there were a lot of jokes. There were a lot of jokes that were about that, yeah.
But no, so Kip and I go and, sit down and we're watching Solo, and I find myself halfway through the movie, I'm just looking at him. And I'm thinking, this is the most amazing thing in the world. I'm sitting in a Star Wars movie with my son, and he's thinking it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching... it's a Star Wars movie, so it's full of action, and I've got tears coming down my eyes.
Oh.
So I get to sit there with my boy watching Star Wars.
Oh.
And, the strangest thing crosses my mind, that I'm thinking, maybe if I had a son when Phantom Menace came out, I would have thought that was good.
Well, yeah, you would have. It was the experience as well. Solo is a solid movie, so that makes it easier a little bit. But hey, look, if you want to get him a cheap Han Solo, Reject Shop got $10 Black Series young Solo figures. I got one for Addy for Christmas. Just putting it out there. If he wants one of his own. That's the dream, isn't it? Really. Obviously you've got 3 daughters, and Star Wars is way more accessible for girls than it was before as well.
Look, it might be,
but it's still that harder.
Yeah, they're not into it.
No.
Kip loves Star Wars. he likes Indiana Jones more than he likes Star Wars.
Does he aware that Han Solo and Indiana Jones are the same actor? Well, but I guess he's only seen Solo. He's like, Alden Ehrenreich is my Solo. I don't know who this old man is.
He's still not seen any of the original movies the whole way through. So, no, I don't think he
So did he go,
that.
I want to see more Star Wars now, Dad? He was like, oh, that's good. I'm cool with that. I've seen Solo.
He'd be happy to go see them at the movies, but he won't watch them on DVD, but he will watch Indiana Jones on DVD.
Yep.
He loves watching Indiana Jones, and I've told him he can't watch Temple of Doom quite yet.
Oh, it's because it's terrifying.
Well, seeing somebody pull someone else's heart out of their chest or they're eating brains, I'm thinking, all right, I'll just, give him a chance. So he can sit through the other
Let's just ease him into these things.
Got to wait for him to get a little bit older and then he can enjoy it. But no,
Olive knows I like Star Wars, and she takes an interest because I think it's something that I like. But we've got to the Forces of Destiny stuff that Disney did, which was very girl orientated. It was sort of, they brought out sort of Barbie sized Princess Leia's and Rey's and stuff, and she's got those and she loves those. And she sees a little bit of the cartoon. She likes Ewoks, and she'll watch a YouTube clip of Ewoks and stuff. But she's just like, Star Wars is too scary. I'll watch Star Wars when I'm 65. I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. And I'm kind of conscious of, like, I don't want to just be like, you have to love it.
That's right.
Love it.
You're my child. You must enjoy Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's tricky because I'm sort of, and she knows who Rey is, and I got her a Rey dress up, and I'd mentioned this before because Brett, our friend Brett, who was on last week, he's here today. His daughter turned 4, and they did fancy dress, and I'm just like, I'll get Oliver Rey, and I got her one quite cheap. It was just a clearance one, and of course, like the day of, she didn't want it. She wanted to do fairies she wanted to do princesses, and because I wanted to be like, I wanted to walk in the Rey costume with the lightsaber, and she's surrounded by princesses, and she's just there holding, But of course, she wanted she wanted the princess dress, and I'm just like, I can't really begrudge. I can't be like going, you must, wear it. Like, you've got to wear what you want to wear and be comfortable. That's up to you. But she said at Halloween that she'll wear it, so I've got a few months. Yeah. Who knew Halloween was big in Glen Iris, where I live? They do Halloween where you are?
Not so much where we are. Around dropping the kids off at school, it is very, very big. Some of the people go all out. And insanely all out.
We didn't know because we bought the house and we're going, well, it's coming up. I don't know if anybody's going to do it, but I guess we'll see. We'll get some lollies. And then it was just stacks of kids and stuff. They all did it. And we didn't even realise there were even that many families in our area. But it seemed people came around to our area. I'm like, all right, well, next year I guess we'll be more prepared.
The kids at school definitely, they have Halloween parties, and it's a lot bigger than it was when we were kids. That's for sure.
So you caught up Star Wars movie-wise, so you've seen Last Jedi.
Seen Last Jedi.
Where did you land? Where'd you land on Last Jedi?
I liked Last Jedi. I mean, it's fun. I liked that Poe didn't know what was going on. I thought that was a good idea.
He learned a lesson. He went on a journey.
Yeah. He's a fighter pilot. Why are you going to tell him your plans?
Yes. So
no matter how much he thinks
this is the military.
That's right.
Dude, you don't need to know everything. It doesn't matter who it is.
I mean, I thought that the random side plot over to, the Las Vegas of the sky.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the bit that kind of grinds people's gears a little bit. But Star Wars is full of ridiculous stuff.
That's right. To me, it's like, well, that doesn't really matter.
So Luke's journey, you had no problem with where Luke ended up?
Yeah, I liked
a curmudgeon.
That he was using the Force to pretend he was there. And yes, he sucked me in. And I thought, no, all right. Fair enough. I like that.
He turned up with a new haircut, and all of a sudden,
that worked. Yeah, I loved the planet. I thought it was, really interesting. Looking at the red coming through when they were walking around and inhabiting the old base. I found it interesting.
It's it's good that something that because when it was sort of coming, it's that weird thing because it was such a. It played against so many people's expectations, and when it's leading up and people are like, what do you want out of it? And I was like, well, I want to be surprised and challenged. Yeah, and you and you say those things, and then when it actually happens, you're like, oh,
I didn't want a remake of Empire.
No, and that was always where everyone was like, oh, well, she'll go and she'll train, and then they'll go off on a thing, and then she'll be like, I don't want to do this, and she'll go save her friends, and it'll just be like Empire Strikes Back all over again.
Like, do you watch honest trailers?
Yes.
And so you've seen the honest trailer of Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And while I did enjoy the movie, yeah, it really is just Star Wars all over again.
Yeah, it was a reboot and a remake at the same time. But
And it worked.
Yeah.
It got everyone back on board.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to see it. But the fear was Last Jedi was just going to be Empire again.
Yeah. And that was the easy, and that was, I think a lot of the reason people bristled at Last Jedi was because they assumed it was going to go a certain way, and it was constructed in a way that was basically, no, it's not going to. We're going to challenge you, and this isn't going to end the way you think, and it's going to go all these different ways, and ultimately, short-term pain, long-term gain.
Yeah.
And all the cards are on the table. People are like, oh well, you can't believe you got rid of Luke now and you killed off Snoke. It's like, well, you've got to clear the decks of those guys to make Kylo and Rey shine. You can't have them on the wings while those guys are fighting in the last movie, and then at the last minute they kind of do something. Like, it's those two characters that are the driving of the story. And, you've got all this other... You've got them. They're in movies. You don't need them.
Breaking away from the way that the original trilogy did it.
Yeah.
And it's doing it a little differently.
Yeah. And that was ultimately very... We're getting the wind up over here from Tony wants to get on. He's like, come on, I've got things to say. So yeah, we are actually almost out of time, but that's okay.
That's just we're waiting to play cards.
Oh, you want to play cards? Oh, really? Is that what people are waiting for? Oh, okay. Oh, we can do that.
All right,
we'll wind up.
That's fair enough. We can wrap
the
this
important
up.
thing, the important thing is that we're
play cards at the end.
Yeah, exactly. The important thing is that we're right. That's what we're talking about. There was this little guest appearance from Tony, who I'm going to get on later on after he's had a few more beers. I want to get the sensible person on first, and then you put the messy one on later on. Oh, really? Can you hear us through the thing?
A little bit.
Oh, that's all right.
That's a little bit worrying.
This is my 45th episode, Tone. So I've been doing.
Really?
Yeah. Well, when we get to 50, we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Gosh.
Sticking with it.
Yeah, well done. Very impressive.
What are before we close up then, we will close up, and you can come back anytime. You're welcome. I've been bugging you for months. You're like, dude, I'm on holidays. When I'm on holidays, it's just the perfect storm. I knew you'd be here on our little weekend
That's right.
away.
I couldn't escape.
You couldn't escape. I'm like, you have to indulge me. And it's been really good getting lots of friends on, actually, because one day we'll look back and we'll realise how wrong we were about all our Star Wars predictions.
Well, particularly with episodes 1, 2, and 3, we got to watch those together. I mean, the original trilogy we all watched pretty much with our parents.
You can come. Well, when Vinny, I know you probably haven't listened to the last episode, but Vinny, who we were talking about at the start, was he hadn't seen he saw Rogue One, he hadn't seen Force Awakens or Last Jedi, and of course he's like, well, I might as well just wait until the last one comes out. So he apparently
some things never change.
Before episode 9 comes out, he's going to watch TFA and Last Jedi, and then we'll go midnight.
Yep.
So I know we'll put the feelers in, but I think even if you can't make midnight, we'll do a screening together.
It's coming out December.
Yeah? And I will
after school holidays start.
When does I don't know, maybe a week or two. But what we'll do is anyway.
No. I mean, I'm just thinking. Hang on a second. It's December midnight screening with at least one of my children.
All right.
Again,
we'll
that'd be fun.
We'll either bring you along. Or if you can't do that, we'll go together and we'll do a little post breakdown afterwards, because you're too good of a resource to not tap into, basically. Now,
whenever you want.
Look at this. They're clearing the table for the cards here. So we'll wrap this up. You don't do social media, so I'm not even going to bother asking you. You're a man who doesn't spend as much time on the internet. I've got 4 kids. I ain't got time to F around on the internet. So you can find us at StarWarsSpeltOut.com. We have T-shirts now through TeePublic. You can actually get our T-shirts. Get them, download them, order them, and wear them to celebration, or just wear them around your house. Thanks for coming on, dude.
You are very welcome. It's been fun.
And we'll see you next time.